Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
We go deep on DeepSeek today, the Chinese startup with an AI breakthrough that's sending shockwaves through Wall Street. As the U.S. stock market reels, this underdog could be on the brink of toppling Silicon Valley's reign in artificial intelligence. Is this the beginning of the most unexpected tech shift of our time? And amid the rise of instant gratification, can micro dramas become the key to unlocking massive growth across industries? Let's talk. Coming to you live from Beijing, this is Roundtable. I'm Heyang. For today's program, I'm joined by Steve Hatherly and Fei Fei in the studio. First, on today's show, there's a new artificial intelligence chatbot on the block. Meet DeepSeek, a Chinese startup born out of a Hangzhou-based hedge fund with an AI model that's low cost, high efficiency, and in some ways, apparently just plain better than OpenAI's ChatGPT. It's topping AI download charts around the world and rattling the U.S. tech stock market. Truly, in the most jaw-dropping meteoric rise, DeepSeek went from being virtually unheard of outside of the Chinese tech scene to a globally recognized name, wiping out nearly 600 billion US dollars, or that's definitely more than 4.2 trillion yuan worth of chip maker giant NVIDIA's market cap in just a single session. And you've probably all heard about DeepSeek during the just past Spring Festival holiday, but let us give you a quick recap. So what exactly is DeepSeek?
Well, DeepSeek is basically a free AI-powered chatbot. Basically, it can be really similar to ChatGPT, where you can post a question and the chatbot will give you an answer to that question. And what different with DeepSeek is also, first of all, it's bilingual. It can provide answers in both Chinese and English.
Multilingual.
Multilingual, yeah.
I was chatting to it this morning. It's on my phone. When it came out on the news, I was like, what's this? I need to know. I want to know. It was on my phone immediately. And I was chatting with it this morning, and because I wanted to test the language capabilities, right? So I said, can you speak Korean? And it said, yes. And I said, can you give me, so I wanted to give it a really challenging task. So I said, can you give me Canada's economic output for 2025 in Korean, please? And it wrote this long thing in Korean about Canada's economic output. I said, okay, fine. Can you also do that in French, please? And 5 seconds later, it gave the same answer in French.
And isn't that exactly the same as ChatGPT, though?
Yeah, exactly. But we'll get into the performance of it. But yeah, it can do that too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. And then it also demonstrates what they call a chain of thought. Basically, they sort of demonstrate what the AI is thinking step by step to solve your problem, the problem that you give. And that's also very interesting for us who is not in the tech world, because we never see these chain of thoughts that the AI machine is processing the questions.
Yeah, that's a really interesting feature. And I have to admit, that was the first thing that stood out for me as I tried out DeepSeek, because these AI companies, these AI tools, they don't usually allow you to have a peek under the hood, so to speak. It actually gives you, and at such tremendous speed, the thought process. And this is one of those reasoning models, which is one of the hallmarks of DeepSeek now. And already today, when I checked out other international AI models, they're doing the same thing. So it's just so quickly as the AI world adopts, and also like with Perplexity, for example, it has I don't know the specific word, but incorporated the DeepSeek R1 model into its tools already.
Yeah.
So it already happened now.
Because it's open source.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep on going. There's so many interesting features. We got to knock them off one by one.
Well, let's go back to the beginning. This was founded in 2023 in Hangzhou, as you said. That's in the eastern part of China in Zhejiang province. And it was established by Liang Wenfeng. And it was came about, as you mentioned, Heyang, in the opening. This came from a large a company called Highflyer, which is a hedge fund specializing in AI-driven trading strategies. So those two companies are connected in the sense that they are in the same field, but also connected in the sense that Highflyer invested in DeepSeek and also supplied some of its earliest employees, and that really helped to lay the foundation for the company's growth to help to get it where it is today.
Isn't that kind of inspiring that actually, yeah, so also, the founder, he made his first bucket of gold through hedge fund trading, but also with a lot of this AI capabilities. And then in 2023, after seeing what ChatGPT did as it dropped into the wild of the world, and then the CEO is like, why don't I try this too?
Yeah.
And it's only 2025,
Yes.
in the beginning of the year. And
It
already
took
we're
no
seeing
time. Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah, I think they developed like 4 or 5 versions before they dropped the DeepSeek R1 and eventually won the attention. I think it first started from the tech world, really, that a lot of the tech insiders overseas, not here in China, start to talk about how impressive DeepSeek R1 is on social media platforms like X. And then the word started to spread, and then the news spread back to China, and people here in China start to realize, what a cool app DeepSeek is, and people start to play with it over the holiday. And I think they pose a lot of very interesting questions. And for example, one of my friends asked the app, which is a better university, Tsinghua University or my university, which is a pretty regular common university here in China. And of course, DeepSeek answered with Tsinghua University is a top tier university here in China. And then my friend goes, but I'm graduated from that normal university. And then DeepSeek give it a long chain of thought and goes, well, in that case, I think that university probably is the
It
better
understood that may not have been the correct answer for that context. There's a lot being talked about now, all over the world, as a matter of fact, about DeepSeek and what it is and what it means for the industry. And when we talk about what's special about it, one of the things is the lowered cost. It's a reported $6 million that it was trained on, and that's a fraction of the $100 million that was referenced by Sam Altman. Sam Altman's the OpenAI CEO. He was talking about ChatGPT-4 when he brought up that number. It also uses less memory than its rivals, and that reduces the cost to perform tasks for users like you and I. The team is quite small. There's 140 people, which is kind of cool because they're calling it, and they're proudly declaring this, the homegrown talent from elite Chinese universities. There's a lot being talked about of why this is so impressive. And I was digging around the internet looking for some videos from tech experts, and I found a video from Bernard Marr. He is an award-winning author on business and tech, and he was talking about the difference between ChatGPT and DeepSeek. And he said this: think of DeepSeek as the AI model you use when speed and accuracy are non-negotiable. He's very impressed by it. He said that it outperforms its rivals on text-to-image generation and also in in-depth document summarization and coding support too.
Wow, that is pretty amazing. It's really interesting that I think this even happened before we woke up here in China, because there is the time difference on social media. It was even before the Chinese people were chatting about it in this explosive manner. Already on Twitter, on TikTok, on the international platforms, you see people already, testing this thing out and trying to figure it out. And why do you think it has gotten such global recognition, so many people talking about it, and also wiping out trillions of US dollars in the American stock market?
I saw someone post, this was the post on the internet. Until yesterday, we were talking about building $500 billion data centers. But today, a small Chinese firm knocked out $500 billion, almost $600 billion of NVIDIA's stock. And that's why the tech world is in such shock about this latest advancement. One of the reasons, anyway.
Yeah, I think before DeepSeek really, because it's free and it's open source, basically means that anybody who knows about coding can go up on their platform and copy the codes of this chatbot and then build a new model based on their technology. And I think the company also released multiple papers explaining how they train DeepSeek. And I think what a lot of tech experts are pretty impressive by that is, as Steve mentioned, about the cost. And that means I think a lab in UC Berkeley, they actually replicated DeepSeek R1's technology and was able to build a very small model with just $30. And that means that AI companies and AI startups is no longer a small circle job. It's basically anybody can test the water. And I think in one way, it will speed up the development of AI technology.
We talked about the importance or the benefits of open source technology when we talked about robots here on Roundtable. And I forget the name of the company that put out the robot here in China, but it was an open source robot platform. And they said, here you go. Here you are, world. You can now build off of this platform for this robot to suit your own needs. It's the same thing with this technology, too. Things that were closed before, the tech was kept quiet. It was secretive. No one had access to it. This is open source. You right now listening can go onto the internet and simply search in a search engine about how DeepSeek did this and what their methods were, what their methodology was, and it'll pop up right in front of you, and you can read it right for yourself.
Yeah. I like to make 2 points here. I hope I remember both before making the speech.
I know we're zooming through this
we
chat,
are. There's so much to pack in here. One thing is, yes, what an amazing team. Is it only 140 young people, mostly younger, born after 1995. So super young team. And then I saw all these discussions in America talking about what's the motivation of these young people? What's the motivation of this company? It came out of nowhere. Yeah, you haven't been following this stuff, so you don't know. And also maybe you don't know Chinese. But I suspect, or actually just by reading how they've made this company and rose to fame this way, these are a bunch of dreamers. I doubt that they have a very specific agenda behind what they're doing. It's more like, we want to be the best technologists in the world. You can prove that you're even better than the most established platforms and technologies out there. And also this shows that China has great engineers.
Yeah.
And previously, we don't talk about this enough because actually in China, there are so many people studying STEM, the STEM subjects, and generation after generation. And this younger generation of people, they've proven that they don't even need to go abroad to study or work, but just from elite Chinese universities, they can get to this point. And so I think there's something very special about also the organization, that this is a small group of people. They are free from, we all know the vials of big organizations. And then they're free from that. And they're free from, we need to make a profit tomorrow. So with those things and such a brilliant group of young minds together, they managed to do this. But back to the open source issue that you guys mentioned. You mentioned the bright side of things, but also there's always been this really, I think, sobering and also cautioning kind of other side of the coin story. That is, if anybody can get their hands on such powerful tools, what if it's a bad guy?
Yeah.
What happens with that?
Yeah, you're talking about the ethical considerations here, and that is not only DeepSeek that we're talking about anything open source here, right? Yeah, it raises concerns about misuse of the technology. So that's why ensuring things like responsible development and deployment of AI models, it's crucial to avoid such, I guess we could call them unintended consequences, if you will. Yeah. But again, that's anything open source, isn't it? A couple of points, talking about the domestic impact. And there's a big global impact, obviously, but there's a domestic impact too. And the CEO of DeepSeek, I found this to be an interesting point. He said in a previous interview, we cannot remain a follower forever of U.S. AI development. And that encourages DeepSeek to be a contributor and China to be a contributor to global innovation and not just always get a free ride. Those were his words. Here's another quote from Marina Zhang, the associate professor of the University of Technology in Sydney. Professor Zhang said, it has forced Chinese companies like DeepSeek to innovate so that they can do more with less. And she was talking about restrictions from the United States and the ban on chips, saying that while those restrictions pose challenges, they've also spurred creativity and resilience, aligning with China's broader policy goals of achieving technological independence. So the silver lining to those restrictions on chips was that it forced companies here in China to innovate. It forced them to try to find a different route, and DeepSeek has done both of those things.
Yes, and I think DeepSeek really jumped outside of the box because here in China, before DeepSeek RI really made a splash in the market, there are a number of also AI-driven chatbots here in China developed by different companies. We have Doubao, we have Kimi, but I think they are sort of thinking inside the same box is that we need a lot of chips, putting a lot of money to train the model so that it can be a reasoning model for ordinary use. But what DeepSeek did was very different is that they used a technology called reinforcement learning, which basically said for chatbots like ChatGPT, they basically, for example, give a bunch of questions to the model, and then they give the model a lot of steps, and then basically in the end, the answers, so that the model can learn how to go from the question step by step to the answers. And that requires a lot of processing, a lot of computing, and that explains the amount of chips and money they require. And what DeepSeek did was they only gives the model the questions and the answers. They don't give anything in between the process. They need the model itself to figure out how to get from the question to the answer. And when the model did it right, they give him or her or it an award.
Like a puppy.
Yeah. So it called reinforcement learning, which is one of the reasons why they can do it with such a limited budget, with a very limited number of chips, which is, I think, unbelievable for many of those in these states, thinking, how can they do
it's
that?
Unbelievable for the world.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's one of the big global impacts here is that they've proven that they can have a cutting-edge AI model developed with limited computing resources, and that's why NVIDIA's stock plunged 17% on the 27th of January, cutting nearly $600 billion from its market capitalization, because NVIDIA is a leading manufacturer of the chips that are used to train AI models, particularly GPUs. Those are graphics processing units. And their GPUs have become the industry standard for AI and machine learning workloads because those chips can handle massive parallel computations efficiently. But DeepSeek has done this with less. They've done the same, and they've done tests comparing this model to other models, wondering, is it really as good as the other models? And what they found is that, yes, it is competitive. They have indeed done more with less.
Yes, so what essentially they've done is by prioritizing algorithmic. So working with the algorithm and making it efficient, far more efficient now over brute force scaling. And that's what, can we say, traditional / prior to DeepSeek way of looking at AI prowess. And DeepSeek managed to reduce the need for these expensive hardware and energy-intensive training processes. And the first thing when I saw this, I was going a really big mental hooray in the sense that I know not a lot of people are looking at this, but when I looked at AI development, one thing I hated about it was I know that it requires so much energy to produce the
electricity, the need for the data
the
centers.
Water.
Yeah.
So you see people talking about like massive data centers that could take maybe 2 Manhattans to power, and just imagine the amount of natural resources that goes into that, and that's terrible for the environment. Do you think now, since we've got a much smaller, cost-efficient, high-efficiency DeepSeek model out here, then does this mean that, we could be seeing a greener version of AI?
This is from AP. So in 2023, data centers consumed about 4.4% of all U.S. electricity, and that is expected to increase to 6.7% to 12% of total U.S. electricity by 2028. That's from the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. That is a shockingly high number. Is not even currently, it's expected to rise, but even currently, almost 4.5% of all the electricity in the United States is going towards data centers. And by consuming 50 to 75% less energy than their U.S. counterparts, DeepSeek proves that smarter algorithms, not just bigger data centers, can drive progress.
Yeah. And, thinking about Microsoft used to invest in a nuclear power plant just for their data centers. So you can imagine the amount of power it requires. And now I think I watched the video, a sort of video explaining how DeepSeek works. And that professor said with DeepSeek's technology, here in my university, we also have some really powerful GPUs, and I also have a really powerful computer. I myself can start to develop and work around reasoning AI models on my computer in my university.
Right.
So it depends on your needs. Of course, I think there will still be needs for big data centers, but for those smaller players who have very specific and niche demand on the market, they can just look away from data centers, develop their own, I don't know what, other centers or base or lab.
I was reading a blog post and it was talking about the fact that the AI industry has really for a long time been fixated on the idea of foundational models, these massive kind of all-knowing networks that are trained on everything and anything. But DeepSeek has proven here that smaller, more specialized models they're not just viable, but they're actually a lot better in many ways. And their approach, this mixture of experts model, where you have smaller, highly trained models that work together in tandem as opposed to this one giant brain, if you will. You have a lot of mini brains working together. It's a smarter approach. You can do more with less, as I mentioned before, and it's better for the environment, as you mentioned before.
Well, actually, back to the environment point, after some initial thinking and then after some research, I realized maybe I jumped hooray a little bit too early. I came across this analysis of Genvin's paradox. It's the idea that increasing efficiency in using something, which in this case, the computer chips, AI, and electricity, and all that goes along with it, increasing efficiency actually may be not so great because it encourages the use of more of that resource, electricity, water, what have you. So maybe if DeepSeek is really that good, it might not be good on the face. It might be good on the face of it for the environment, but maybe not so much. Give you an example. It's kind of like if you build a new highway, you'll still have traffic jams because more cars, more people will be driving and using it. So you still don't necessarily know. And guys, you each have like 10 seconds. What does the future hold for AI?
In 10 seconds, so that might be a tough one to answer, but my guess would be, a lot of the tech experts are saying this is a paradigm shift in what we're seeing here. So I think you're going to see, because this is open source, you're going to see a lot of other models follow suit.
And I think we'll not only we'll see more startups, I think more countries can participate in the race now.
Absolutely.
We're not only talking about China and the US, but I think other countries also want to take part now. And now I think is the possibility here.
Oh, I do enjoy that very hopeful ending note right there.